I'm to be found fairly often on Reddit, r/bikepacking, r/cycle touring, and I try to be a useful member of those communities, chip in my 2 pennies worth where I think it might be valuable. And I've noticed that there are some questions that get asked over and over again in different flavours, and they're the sort of questions that I really like to mull on this channel because they don't really have right or wrong answers. So I thought, after tackling them in Reddit comments many times, I'd take one today as the subject of a video. So we're going to talk about riding solo. Should you do it? Could you do it? What might you stand to gain if you do decide to try it? So first off, I should say that I'm coming at all of this from the perspective of someone who enjoys riding solo. Now, I've done a lot of it in the past, and I look forward to doing a lot more of it in the future. But I understand that it isn't for everyone. And I know that often when people say something isn't for everyone, they mean that they are somehow more refined and sophisticated because it is for them. You know how some people wear it like a badge of honour that they like really stinky cheese or really rare steak. But this isn't one of those situations. If you know yourself and you know without a shadow of a doubt that you would enjoy a long solo ride, then that's great. Go for it. It makes planning and scheduling a hell of a lot easier. But if you know yourself and you know for absolute certain that you wouldn't enjoy it, then don't force it. There's nothing inherently beneficial about it. It won't make you a more adventurous or capable bike packer. It will just make you not enjoy your trip as much. This question is usually posed by people who are either planning their first trip or people who have been on group trips in the past and who are now, for whatever reason, facing the prospect of a solo ride, and they're uncertain about whether or not they're going to like it or what to expect. And this is where you see what I mean about there being no right or wrong answers. No one can ever tell you what you will or won't enjoy. You might not know yourself until you've tried it. All anyone can ever do, and all I'm going to do, is offer opinions and personal experiences that might help you make up your own mind. Now, I'm going to phrase mine in the form of 3 points, 3 benefits that I think you might take from riding solo that you might not take, or might not take to the same degree were you to ride with chums. You are alone, and alone in a way somehow beyond that of being at home when no one else is in. It's entirely possible that you are many, many hours from the nearest splurge of civilization. It's entirely possible that you're on some remote trail where you might not come across another human being all day. It's entirely possible that you have sketchy or non-existent phone reception. If a decision needs to be made, or if something goes wrong, it's all on you. And this is an unusual situation for most people to be in, and it can be quite a nerve-wracking one. It can make you feel exposed and vulnerable. But this is all just perspective, and I'm going to put forward an argument that actually out there you're in a more secure situation than you are when you're at home. Now, at home you are at the whim of myriad possible scenarios. Boilers leaking, router's broken, internet banking's gone down, car's not working, all of these problems impact your life in quite significant ways, but for most of us there's very little that we can actually do about them, apart from hand them off to someone else to deal with and hope that that person deals with them quickly and efficiently, doesn't charge you an absolute fortune to do so. Out on the bike though, things are different. Out here you have a first aid kit, you have a toolkit, you have bags filled with camping gear, food, water. You have prepped and planned this route long in advance, and you've practiced all the skills and techniques you need to fix a broken chain, to mend a puncture, to replace a snapped cable, to bandage up your finger when you slice it open on your chain ring. You've engineered yourself into a situation where instead of being at the mercy of a million possible problems, you are tooled up and ready to be the master of just a few that might arise. So when you're descending that rocky hillside and the rain's just started and the evening is coming in, and suddenly there's a bang and a hiss and you're rolling on a flat, you might panic initially, tell yourself you're probably going to die out here. Hypothermia, wolves, trolls, whatever the local flavour of certain death may be. But then the situation clarifies and it becomes incredibly simple. There is only you to fix this. No Google, no Siri, no one else to offer an opinion or words of encouragement. Just you, your common sense and your tools. And you might never have plugged a tubeless puncture before, but how difficult can it be? You work it out. And if it proves to be too much of a job to do in the time you've got, or it's too hard to do in the dark or the rain with cold fingers, then you pitch your tent right there on the side of the trail and you deal with it tomorrow. And deal with it you will. And once you're back on the road and you're rolling along, it feels great. You faced up to adversity and you triumphed. This is why people talk about bikepacking as being empowering, because it puts you in a situation where problems and decisions will arise, but in which you are able to deal with them. And you're not going to come out of this any more able to deal with a bust carburetor or a downed router, but it's nice to be reminded occasionally that you are a capable problem-solving machine who can look after themselves when it comes to it. Once again, you're alone. But instead of looking at how this impacts your decision-making process, let's look at the state itself, solitude. Because that is also not the norm for most people. We live in a very connected world, friends, family, colleagues, social media, 24-hour news, streaming entertainment at the touch of a button. Even when you're lying in bed and all your devices are off, if you're anything like me, you can just feel society all around you. You know, your village, your town, your neighbours. Even if you don't know them, you know they're there. And it's very hard to find solitude in amongst all of that. You can be lonely. Loneliness isn't the same as solitude. No one chooses to be lonely, I don't think. But this means that when people find solitude, they often fall into loneliness as a kind of default. Whereas solitude can be a really useful thing if you just come at it right. You know, it's a time of silence and of no distractions. A great time for self-evaluation, self-interrogation. Ask yourself how you feel about religion, how you feel about climate change, how you feel about COVID vaccinations, how you feel about relationships, your career, how you feel about this ride that you're on right now, on your own. Have some internal dialogues and decide whether your opinions on these things are all based on current research, or whether you perhaps want to re-evaluate some of the ways you see the world or you see your life. Or you can go in completely the other direction. Embrace the silence. Empty yourself absolutely and just live in the moment. No sound except the wind and the wheels, no past, no future, no present and no geography except for this moment, this little patch of wherever in the world you happen to be passing through. Just let it all wash over you and then flow away. It's unusual to be in a situation where so little is calling out for your attention. So enjoy it, enjoy the silence. You may even find that you enjoy it so much that when you get back to real life, back to work, you crave more of it. You find out that it is in fact the only way to deal with and make sense of the babble and the hubbub that is generated by most people's everyday lives. My third and final point might seem like a bit of a strange one because it is entirely to do with interacting with people. I'm an introvert. I find solitude to be invigorating and energizing, but it shouldn't be mistaken for a dislike of people in general. Many of my most enduring memories from my bike trips are of the unexpected encounters with strangers that happen along the way. Now, if you roll into a new town on a laden bicycle and you pull up in the town square, I reckon 80% of the time somebody will come and talk to you. And it might just be to say hello, to ask you where you're from, where you're going. It might be to offer some local advice on the trail ahead. It might be to offer you lunch, somewhere to stay. You know, these are all unexpected and unsolicited kindnesses that have been offered to me more than once on bike trips, and every time it happens it renews my faith in humanity just a little bit. But I think the chances of it happening go down as the size of your group increases. You roll into a new town on a bicycle hung with bags and you stand out as a traveller. People are drawn to travellers. Travellers have news, they have songs, they have stories from the next town. And you're on your own, so you're non-threatening. You might even look a little bit lost, a little bit vulnerable. You are eminently approachable. If there's two of you, not so much. You know, in that situation, you have each other to rely on. You have your own relationships, your own conversations going on that strangers aren't so willing to inflict themselves on. Three or more of you, especially if it's three blokes, in my experience, you'll get hellos and good mornings and how's it going kind of thing, but little more than that, in my experience. And so, counterintuitive as it may sound, I think it's entirely likely that riding solo is probably the best way to meet people during your trip, be that momentary encounters or people who you end up riding with for days on end. I think it's important to point out here as well that these encounters with strangers in no way invalidate those first 2 points that we talked about that entirely rely on you being on your own. In fact, I think they reinforce them really nicely. So on the self-reliance front, interactions with strangers, especially if you're in a foreign country, they become situations that you have to deal with and master. You know, if I'm in a group and a situation requires interaction with strangers, I will generally step back and let a more outspoken member of the group do it. Not even consciously often, that's just the way I am. When you're on your own, somebody has to book the pitch for the night and the campsite owner doesn't speak any English. That's a situation to be dealt with. And it makes you realise that it's fine. It's easy to deal with these people. You mime your way through it and you get it done and you feel like you've achieved something. Now, on the second point, self-evaluation and looking at opinions of the world and all that stuff, strangers are really helpful there as well because they're strangers. You don't get to choose who you get thrown in with. You know, in the course of my past bike trips, I've crossed paths with and spent significant amounts of time with some really fantastic people. You know, interesting, funny, kind, well-meaning people, wild and wonderful in all the best ways, who have enriched my days. I've also found myself spending time with people who turned out to be outspokenly racist, homophobic, just weirdly right-wing, and holders of opinions and philosophies completely at odds with my own. But that's reality. We're re-evaluating our opinions about the world, and being thrown in with strangers is a great way to have yourself pulled out of that echo chamber that we all know we live in. You know, you talk to these people and then you're able to say, okay, I have new information, up to the minute research. Do I still think racism and homophobia are really bad things? Yes, I do, and I can be sure of that now because I've done my new due diligence and research. So you gain something even from experiences which are questionable and possibly a little awkward at the time. So that's them then, my 3 points for consideration. 3 ways in which I think you might actually benefit from doing that ride solo. But, you know, they're just my opinions. Everyone has opinions, so if you think I missed anything or I got anything wrong, then let me know. I'm genuinely interested in people's thoughts on this kind of thing. And thank you for watching. Thank you for watching right to the end. On screen at the moment are the names of the happy few who have been kind enough to support this channel on a monthly basis via my Ko-fi page. I'll stick a link down below if you wanted to have a look and consider joining their hallowed ranks. One-off donations also very much accepted, either on Ko-fi or through the thanks button down below. No pressure. Equally, just like, subscribe, leave a comment. I do read them all and I reply to most. It's one of the best things about having this channel. But for now, I'm done. It's been a fantastic ride out here. I'm in the Brams Hill plantation, south of Reading, on a beautiful sunny day, the beginning of August. I'm hungry and I'm tired, so I'm heading home. Gonna bake myself a potato and enjoy the rest of the evening. Until the next one, bye now.